Hi, moms. Hi, everyone. How are you doing today? How was your homeschool week? I hope it was awesome. We had a break week this week. If you don't know what a break week is, we take every seventh week of school off to rest, relax, and recuperate. That's actually mom needs to rest, relax, and recuperate and clean the house. And that was this week. So it was awesome. I hope you had a great week, especially if you had a break week. But today we're going to talk about our relationships and how when we are homeschool moms, a lot of times we become so consumed with homeschooling, especially in the beginning, or in those years that we're adding an additional student and we're a little bit overwhelmed by it. If we're going from 3 kids to 4 kids or 2 kids to 3 kids, it can be very overwhelming and we tend to get consumed with what we're doing and kind of lose track of the point of what we're doing and how to maintain our relationships as we're going, because we're doing this for the people that we love, and sometimes they might not feel that that's the case. So we're going to talk about that. Here's a reality check. There are 168 hours in a week, 24 hours, 7 days a week. That's 168 hours. And our homeschools, um, this is shocking, are somewhere between 10 hours and 35 hours a week of that 168 hours a week. So we get so consumed and so worked up about this thing that's going on in our lives, and I know that it's a big deal. Obviously, I do it every single day. I know it's a big deal, and I know that there's a grand purpose to it, but in reality, it's a very small amount of our time. There's some crazy music going on right now. Hopefully that ends in a second. I had terrible technical difficulties all day, and I ran my malware software before we were going live, so this wouldn't happen, and here it is happening. Okay, I think it's over. I'm so sorry. I have the absolute worst technical problems all the time. It's so crazy. I know how to homeschool. I don't know how to do all of this technology. But anyway, back to the subject at hand. Um, today we're going to talk about our marriages, or I don't have a marriage. You all probably have a marriage, and I'll talk about that in a second. But maintaining the relationship with your spouse, your kids, and your friendships. Sometimes everything shifts a little bit when we start homeschooling. So I do have to mention that I'm going to be talking about your marriage first, and I am not currently married. I am a widow, and I have been homeschooling as a widow the entire time that I've been homeschooling, nearly 5 years. So while I don't have a husband, I did make the decision to homeschool when I did have a husband. We made that decision together, and I started prepping for homeschooling, and I was in that very nervous, anxious period of time when I was married. And it was driving my husband crazy. And one of the things that we tend to do when we're preparing to homeschool, we're hoping to homeschool, we're planning to homeschool, like doing the actual planning, is obsessively talk about it. And your husband wants to talk about something else, something other than that. I do have 2 brothers who I'm very close with, who are both homeschool dads. And they don't want to hear about all of my homeschool talk and all of the talk that I like to have with my sister-in-law who homeschools in front of them. They point blank have told us, both of them, that we talk about it too much and they don't want to hear it. And we homeschool their kids. I homeschool 2 of my brother's kids, and my sister-in-law obviously homeschools her kids. And even though we're talking about their kids, plus my 4 kids, they don't want to hear about it. They get sick of it, just like we get sick of hearing the 2 of them talk about construction work all of the time. So sometimes we tend to be consumed and talk about it a little bit too much, and it can be a little bit aggravating and then put a little rub in the relationships with the men, even if they're not your husband. They might be your dad or your brothers, and it might just be too much. So it's just something to be aware of and to just stay on top of, and realize that everybody doesn't want to hear about homeschooling all the time, even though it's the top thing on your mind, front of mind all of the time. If you are homeschooling against your husband's wishes, you're probably living in a nightmare. So I know that a lot of families are in that situation, And that's the biggest disagreement that you could have in your marriage over homeschooling, is that you're doing it against your husband's wishes, and it's causing a huge rift in your marriage. So absolutely, we need to be homeschooling with the consent and um, the agreement of your husband, or else it's going to be a living nightmare. But you might also disagree about curriculum to use, or schedule, or how often, or what level you should be homeschooling at. Maybe you want to be more relaxed, he wants it to be more intense, something like that. It's really something that needs to be worked out, and a compromise needs to be reached, because it will cause a rift in your marriage if you're not on the same page with any other topic, any other thing that's up for discussion in your marriage. It's going to cause a problem. So always be on the same page of everything with your husband, especially homeschooling. Make time for your husband's needs. He might feel a little pushed out if you are reading books about homeschooling constantly. If you're exhausted from the homeschool day and you don't have time for him, or you don't have energy for him, I should say, that's going to be aggravating, especially over a certain amount of time if it just keeps going on and on. So really being aware of the fact that your husband wants to spend time with you. He wants to spend intimate time with you, where you're not just an exhausted rag. He was probably looking forward for you coming out of the baby and toddler years. If you've come out but you continue to homeschool, you've kind of stayed in that lifestyle anyway. And you're tired. We're all tired from homeschooling, but being aware of his needs and even scheduling time with him in. I know it's not romantic. I know it's not spontaneous, but scheduling time with him in. I'm not even going to say date nights if you have little tiny kids and it's so hard to have a date night. But if you need to watch a game with him, or just have a lunch or a breakfast alone with him while the kids are napping, or before the kids get up on a weekend or something, try to just intentionally schedule that time in with him. He will be absolutely thrilled. But don't let the homeschooling consume you to the point where you're pushing your husband away and he's aggravated. It is extremely common and extremely normal. So if that is happening, it's normal, but just be aware of it and take care of it. He will be very, very happy. The second relationship that it doesn't make any sense why this would be the case, but sometimes the relationship with our kids suffers. So we've decided to homeschool intentionally to develop a better relationship with them, or maintain a good relationship with them, and or to change the atmosphere of our home, or to keep the atmosphere of our home to be a loving and close one, whatever our aim was. And the opposite might feel like it's happening sometimes. Once again, because you're getting a little bit too consumed, or we're getting a little bit consumed with the homeschooling. This one I'm totally in on. But when we become the teacher all the time, which sometimes can happen, we're making every single thing into a teachable moment, and we're forgetting to turn teacher mode off and go into just plain old mommy mode, just plain old snuggly, cuddly, fun, laid back mommy mode. If you have that mode, hopefully you have that mode somewhere in your body. But when we become the teacher, sometimes we think we have to be the teacher all the time. So every time we go grocery shopping, there's an educational lesson to be learned out the window while we're driving down the street, or in the grocery store aisle. And of course, everything in life is an educational moment. Of course, that's true. But maybe we can be a little bit more subtle about it and a little more enjoyable about it, and not constantly be in teacher mode. So we can put a rift between us and our children when we're constantly in teacher mode and not coming out of that and just being mommy. Same as with the husband. If we, as I talked about with the husband being burned out from the homeschool day, if we're burned out from the homeschool day and we have nothing to give our children, if we do switch back into mommy mode, mommy is like an exhausted rag and has no energy and no ability to be present with the kids once the school day is over. That's a problem. So making sure that the school day is not burning you out on a regular basis, or ever, is really, really important. So making sure that your schedule is manageable for yourself, and manages your energy level efficiently so that you're not just a used up rag at the end of the day for your kids is really, really important, because they're waiting for mommy to come back to them once teacher goes away, when the school day is over. And they're going to be really excited if you still have time for them to just snuggle and have fun and maybe go play outside, or at least be kind and not cranky to them. That's going to go a long way. The other thing that sometimes creeps up when we start to homeschool is the blame game that we might start playing with the kids. So, and not a good game. If things aren't going the way that we were hoping they would go, or the way that we were planning that they would go, the way that we literally planned on a sheet of paper our day should go, we start blaming the kids for those problems. And that's a really dangerous road to go down in any relationship. But with your kids, when you start blaming, or when we start blaming every little itty bitty problem that's going on in the school day on the kids, and becoming bitter towards them. The whole reason that we began homeschooling in the first place was because we love them and we want the best for them. And then sometimes it can twist into this resentment and this bitterness if it's not working out the way that we want it to work out. And then we tend to blame them because they don't have the right attitude, or they didn't clean up after themselves, and they didn't do their work quickly enough, or they're not learning fast enough. We tend to start to twist the relationship into something negative, and it's just miserable for absolutely everyone. And then you're going back to that husband and complaining about it all the time and perpetuating the problems in that relationship. So acknowledging that we have control. We're the leaders of the homeschool. And so if there is something going on in the homeschool that we don't like, we have full control to change it. So that either means training our kids in better habits so that they're not doing something that's wrong or getting on our nerves. And so we can take away that piece of resentment, just acknowledging that we have full control. So if there's something that's bothering us, we can change it. So think about that if it happens. And then the last part, the last relationship that might change or might degrade are our friendships when we start to homeschool. So my definition that I think is accurate of community is a group of people with shared goals working together, or shared values working together towards a common goal. So in order to be in community and be in friendship with people, you have to have things in common, and you kind of have to be working towards the same goals in life, which means you have things in common, and you have things to talk about, and you have things to work on together. And when you start homeschooling, you naturally have changed your priorities and changed your schedule and changed the goal that you were aiming at. If you pull your kids out of school, you've changed it. But if you have friends, if you had a bunch of friends with preschoolers, and then it's school age time, kindergarten time, and you decide to homeschool and they decide not to, you've automatically set your lifestyles up differently, because you have different goals, different things that you're aiming at, and your relationship is naturally going to change. So you can either intentionally work on that and make time to spend together because you don't want that relationship to change, it's very valuable to you, or you can just decide, it's very natural to do this, that you don't have that much in common anymore, and you can move on. So your relationships will shift with your friends, and that's okay. And you can intentionally decide how you want that to go. One thing that might be changing your relationships that we should all completely avoid is alienating our friends, especially if they're really important to us, by talking about homeschooling all the time, incessantly, just like it aggravates our husbands or your husbands if you do that. It's going to aggravate your friends also. So if you notice your friends pulling away, that might be what's going on. So, it's not a good thing to do to alienate anyone anyway. And if your relationships are going to naturally drift, and that's fine, try to just be aware of if it's you alienating your friends by talking about homeschooling all the time. So that's just something to be aware of. And then finally, it's really important to just find your tribe, find your friends who you can live in community with, who you do have shared values with, and who you are working on similar goals in your life, and you can fellowship with one another. So that's going to be, those are going to be much more valuable and beneficial and encouraging and uplifting relationships, because you can help each other, you can lean on each other along the way. You understand the trials that you're going through. Not that homeschooling is a huge is a huge trial, but there are little trials along the way that you need to overcome and work on. You can give each other advice. You can share actual physical, tangible resources, books back and forth. It's just great to have these relationships in place, and putting effort into joining a local homeschool community and making friends with your local homeschoolers is going to be extremely beneficial, and it's going to take the place of those other relationships that you might have just naturally walked away from, that were your friendships before. So that's it for today. Hopefully you can just be aware of how your relationships are shifting, and what's okay and what's not okay, and what you might be doing to cause those relationships to shift, and just adjust the way that you're handling things. And everything's trial and error. Everything's brand new when you first start homeschooling. Everything's brand new when you add a kid to your homeschool, and the number of students you have increases, and it's very nerve-wracking, and we get consumed, and it's totally natural. But it's really important to catch ourselves and make sure that we're always trying to do the right thing and trying to love on the people around us, because that's why we're doing this in the first place. So I hope you find that encouraging, and I will not see you here next week, because I will be away with my real life community, living life with my actual tribe on a retreat. But I will see you in 2 weeks, and I hope you have a wonderful week homeschooling. See you later. Bye-bye.